What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? It's your boy Chris. It's your boy Chris. It's another amazing episode of Financipation. This channel is all about making money. It's all about saving money. It's all about building generational wealth, and it's all about financially emancipating yourself from generational poverty. On this channel, everybody, I give you a six-figure MBA level worth of investing and financial knowledge for free here on YouTube, and the things that people typically spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on in grad school, I give you two for free here on Financipation. Today, everybody, I have a phenomenal guest that I want to introduce to everybody. I met this young lady at a conference I was recently at called FinCon 2024 in ATL. And I actually just got done dropping a podcast actually about my recap of FinCon. So I'll tell everybody like this. If you want to take your business to the next level, if you want to take your professional development to the next level, you got to join professional organizations and you got to essentially surround yourself with the best. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. As I let this amazing young woman introduce herself to my audience.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much for having me on here. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Christina, and I am a financial literacy advocate, but my primary job is a math educator. So I currently work in a school as a math coach. I used to be a high school math teacher and college math professor, but for the last 9 years, I'm coaching other math teachers and pretty much guiding them to be the best math teachers they can be and supporting students. But I do have a passion for financial literacy education. And since I've been working in the education system, I know firsthand the lack of financial literacy education that we have. And that's kind of what started growing my passion to learn more, to be able to help more and see what I can do and support in that area as well.
Got you. All right, cool. Before we go into the teaching, your vibe as far as teaching, being a math, and then moving from being a teacher to a math coach, and now it's ultimately a financial literacy coach for, I would say, kids. Where'd you grow up? Well, you describe your upbringing. Where'd you grow up and everything?
Yeah, so I'm in Jersey, so Tri-State area. I want to mention Jersey because Jersey is also a very expensive state, and it's working as an educator, as a teacher, I always found myself with a second job as well. So had to throw it out there. Shout out to my teachers.
Got you. And my father, after he got out of the U.S. Army my dad was in the Army for 22 years, and when he retired from the military, he basically taught in the school systems for about 20 years. So
Nice.
yeah, my heart goes out to you guys. Y'all have I think the most challenging, most rewarding, and also probably the least respected profession. Teachers work like crazy, and I know my father. He told me there was not a single year he ever taught that he didn't have to take his own GI Bill. If you're not familiar with the GI Bill, everybody, if you're in the military for a certain amount of time, 20 years or so, they give you a certain percentage of your check. Let's say it's like 50% of what you made for the rest of your life because you served your country. My dad told me that for the entirety of his teaching career, his 20 plus years as a teacher, there was not a single year he didn't spend a lot of his money to basically buy his students textbooks or basketballs or food and stuff like that because the parents didn't have the money, and then he had to basically essentially use his own salary to help his kids who actually wanted to learn. So teachers are underpaid across this country. It's just as simple as that.
Wow. That's a beautiful story too. Because yes, we take from our own, and we make sure that our kids have enough. So yeah, we're a parent to many students in the classroom.
Got you. So when did you know you wanted to be a teacher? Let's start the math teacher thing. I'm a mechanical engineer, so I've always had a thing for numbers. I always loved my math teacher. So when did you know you wanted to be a math teacher? What was your journey and your track record to that?
Yeah, so I've always been really good with math, and I actually used to be very competitive in elementary school and middle school. I always wanted to be like the number one in my class. Like I needed to have the highest scores. So yeah, with math, I was always very competitive. And then it wasn't until I got into high school, because a lot of my friends would always ask me for help when it came to math. But it wasn't until I got into high school, I actually had a very horrible teacher. And it was so bad, I was like, wow, I could teach this better than him. And it wasn't until that moment that I was just like also reminded that I helped so many of my friends with math. And him seeing a teacher as bad as he was, I was like, wow, I could do this so well and I could help other students. And that's kind of what grew the idea of me wanting to be a math high school teacher.
It's kind of funny you say that. I had a very similar story about me as far as wanting to why I went the math route. So all my teachers in like English and chemistry, and they were trash, and social studies, they were garbage. Like, so math was always the one subject. I was just like, okay, whether the teacher is good or bad, I can teach this to myself for one. And then it was the only one that had like a non-racial component to it. So with every other subject, it was something that was kind of to some extent subjective about it, particularly like history, particularly with history or social studies. But in regards to math or and things like that, 1 plus 1 was always going to be two. So as a result, I knew very early on that math out of all the subjects was by far, and science as well was by far the least racist of everything. So yeah, definitely. I had a couple of horrible math teachers, but I kind of quickly realized, okay, I can teach myself this stuff. So I think that's one reason why I got on the engineering track. So yeah.
Good for you.
Now, so the journey, Christina, because you said you were a high school math teacher, then you were a college professor, and now you are a math coach. How does that, or you teach math teacher? So how was that like? What was that transition like?
Yeah, so well, actually, I did love teaching high school, but there's a lot of work behind it, right? So teachers, we work beyond the school hours. We work after school, we work on the weekend and so forth. And it wasn't until that I actually had my son that I'm like, wow, this is really a struggle to be able to maintain these. And plus, I worked as a part-time professor as well. And at one point, I was also running a tutoring center. So I had a few jobs, and I realized that teaching was going to be a struggle because all of this extra hours that I needed to put in. So when the opening position in my own town came up to be a math coach, but it was in an elementary school, and that was like a whole new world for me because I'm used to teaching the older students. My degree is in mathematics, so I'm used to this like higher level mathematics thinking. But I was like, you know what? Let me give it a shot. And I've been doing it for the last 9 years and I love it. And it really gives me an opportunity to now see like what kids are learning from a kindergarten age up until college. Like I have this whole spectrum for mathematics. But also what I do on a regular basis is I really just support and coach the teachers. So I make sure that especially new teachers that are coming into the profession, they need a lot of support and guidance. So I'm there walking right next to them, making sure that I help them with lesson planning, help them understand assessments. I run meetings for the grade level in general, and I work with them with the curriculum and making sure that they understand a lot of aspects because they are so busy. So, a lot of people say it's a luxury to have a math coach in a school district because we can coach and support them instead of them trying to figure it out by themselves.
That's interesting. So I'm assuming to be a high school math teacher in New Jersey, what are the credentials like? Do you have to have a math background? Do you have to have, and if that's the case, as far as how you step in, how do you make the math teacher's life easier, I would say?
Yeah, so what's so interesting is like when you're a high school teacher, you have a really strong content background. Like if I went to study literacy, English language arts, I'm studying that area and I'm a master in that area. And that's essentially what I did as a math teacher. But when you're in an elementary school, you study everything. So most elementary teachers are not really specialized in math. And so that's why I think it's so crucial for somebody to be able to coach them and guide them because a lot of them have math anxiety themselves. A lot of them weren't good with math, but yet they are your child's math teacher. So yeah.
That's not a
But
good,
yes,
it's not a good look.
right. But I enjoy my work, working with them, and they're usually very open to learning and growing.
In regards to that, what you said and saying, they're not good at math. I've always thought, as a mechanical engineer and a guy with an MBA who does finance and stuff like that, numbers always came relatively easy to me. I always said because for me, it was the least racist out of everything. I've always thought history has a very, say, pro-European slant. I'll say it politically correct. And it's the same way with a lot of other subjects. But math, 1 plus 1 is always going to be two. Why is it that kids, particularly people who look like us, are kind of predisposed to think that we're not going to be good at math? Why is it that society kind of seems to push us to that direction? Because I hate that, and it really bothers me. What's your take on that, Christina?
Yes. So as a math coach, I say this all the time. And I actually, when I do have the opportunity to speak to parents, I speak directly to them because it really has a lot to do with what they're telling their kids at home. When you, as a parent, are telling your own kids, oh, I'm not a math person, how do you think your kids are going to act? But nobody ever says, I'm not a reader. No, we would be ashamed to not say we're not a reader, right?
Point.
So, so like a lot of things that we see out in the world, we're always reading into it, right? Like the names of stores, things that, brochures, menus, words are always in front of us. We are a continuous reader, but math is out there as well, you know? And so I try to help the parents understand that, you know, your language at home is affecting your child. So you don't want to say that you're not a math person because your brain continues to grow at any point, right? And so you can always learn more math skills. And just by saying that, you're automatically putting that down to your kid. So you don't want your child to come into school thinking that they're not a math person.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like so many things. All my parents that are listening, Christina, you're a parent, I'm a parent. Yeah, be very careful like what you tell your children. I have a 2-year-old right now, and right now every night before he goes to bed, we have worship, we have play. I do my little workouts with him. It's kind of cute, and it's funny because I have numbers that I've written. I think right now we're up to like 65, and I'll just go through index cards. Say, okay, Christopher, what's this number? What's this number? What's this number? And whenever people come to my house and they see, they're like, your son's barely 2 years old. He can already count to 65. He always knows numbers. I'm like, yeah, that's normal, isn't it? But he has no fear to numbers because I'm an engineer and my wife is a scientist. So obviously we're both very analytically inclined, but we say, no, Christopher, you're going to basically study these numbers tonight. And he loves it. He literally says, Dad, when are we going to do my numbers? I mean, it's kind of cute. And I'm already trying to ingrain that into him that you're going to be good at math. You're going to be good at this kind of stuff. And my wife's going to do the same thing with science. So to all my parents that are listening, please ignore this garbage that unfortunately gets pushed in our community that we're not good at math, because it's absolute trash. It's complete garbage, and it's seriously hurting our community. Because as I always say, I truly believe math is the language of God. It's the language that you can literally not speak a language. You can literally not speak a person's language. And I've done this before. You can be in a room with a Russian person, a Chinese person, a person who speaks fluent Spanish, and a person who speaks English. None of you guys can speak each other's language. But if you put some mathematical equations on there, all of us are talking the same language. It's the number of humans. So people, please ignore this garbage that says certain groups of people are not good at math and other groups are very good at it. So yeah. Keep it moving, Christina. Keep it moving. A 2023 study that was done by Charles Schwab says that Black Americans, yes, people who look like us, we are the fastest growing group of investors in America. Full disclosure, everybody, this is a financial channel. And that Black women, such as yourself, Christina, are the fastest growing group of people starting businesses in America, with Hispanic women following a close second. So describe your journey, Christina, into teaching 8 to 12-year-olds about becoming financially literate, because to me, that is that's a passion that you took, that you basically have created into a business now.
Yeah. So we have a large wealth gap. And for me personally, I believe we can close that wealth gap if we educate our children. That's the only way we are going to close the wealth gap. And so we need to educate our kids, and that could be directly or indirectly. And what I mean is I can talk to parents and that's going to filter down to their children, or I can go directly to the children to educate them. Ideally, I want to make sure that the parents are on board as well, because I don't want the kids to come to a point where, you know, many people like our age who are financially educated, they're now struggling with also supporting their parents, right? So if the parents can learn at a relatively young age, even though they have kids, it's only going to better support them when they're older, when they're ready for retirement and so forth. So yeah, my answer, let's help close this wealth gap, and we have to educate the youth.
Absolutely, absolutely. As far as educating the parents, all right, let's go there. You see a person, he or she is 30 years old. They have what age group do you typically kind of run across now, Christina? 8 to 12-year-olds. What's the typical age group?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of different things. So what I've done is I've done workshops for the teachers who teach personal finance and business. So many of those teachers, they're teaching high school students, right? So I'll work with those teachers. I give them resources, fun activities to do with their students in class. So I'm reaching them indirectly. I've also done parent workshops after school with the kids. So I might have like 2nd to 8th graders all after school, and I'm differentiating because I also know their levels of math, right? Like I know a 2nd grader can add and subtract, but by 3rd grade, they're multiplying, 3rd and 4th grade, they're dividing and so forth. So also using my math knowledge to know like what activities I can put in front of who will also help. And really, it's all about behavior as well. So, really educating parents to have these money conversations in the household so money is not this taboo topic, and just guiding them on what kind of conversations they can have. So, doing all these like family financial literacy nights after school events.
Nice, nice. Kind of funny. I always tell dudes that are single, like I said, 90% of my content is about finance. Every now and then people hit me up about just women or dating or marriage or whatever it is. And I like how you said financial date nights. You said financial couples nights. It's just about money because I agree. I think that every family should have a time and say, okay, to your kids, this is what mommy and daddy spent our money on. This is the percentage we threw towards your Jordan. This is the percentage we threw towards your investments. This is the percentage that mommy and daddy threw towards your 529, your college savings account. This is the money we threw toward charitable tithing and stuff like that. I think every family that it has a healthy relationship with money should do that. Why? Because I know, not necessarily with my parents per se, but growing up, my aunts and uncles and grandparents, they never talked about money. I mean, and if they did, it was always in a negative connotation. That all rich people are going to hell. Rich people are evil. And I think we got to change that mindset, because if that's the way you're teaching your kids, everybody, we're gonna stay poor. And it's as simple as that. And I also like the fact, Christina, that you said as a group of people, whether you're black, brown, Hispanic, whether you're black or Latino, the only way we're going to catch this 400-year head start that other groups got over us is we got to start investing our money and get financially literate. I'm gonna ask you some questions later on about just investing and stuff like that. But something that truly pisses me off is whenever I hear this saying that, oh, black people are poor, because we're not poor. We have a spending power, an annual spending power of over $2 trillion with the T dollars. What that means is that we would be the 15th richest country in the world. So how can you be considered poor if you would have more money than Australia, India, Singapore, and many other first world countries that you pretty much hear, Canada and Mexico and many other first world countries that you hear about? We're not a poor group of people. The problem is we were never taught how to properly invest. And if every black person invested 25% of their income in one generation, we would be the wealthiest group in the world. Think about that for a minute, everybody. So I love what you're doing, Christina. And God willing, we're gonna take this thing and take it all over the world. As a teacher, do you get involved with trying to get financial literacy courses into the school systems? Because you're a Jersey girl, I'm a Philly boy. I can tell you right now, I know trying to get into the Philly school systems is seriously a challenge. So how do you A, try to get curriculums into the school systems in Jersey, and then B, how does a person go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really depends on the state. So New Jersey already has something in place in the high school where you have to have some type of financial literacy kind of class, actually accounting class counts, stocks 101 class counts. It's kind of like loosey-goosey for New Jersey. There are other states that require you have to have a basic personal finance class for a graduation requirement. I think we're up to like 25 or 26 states that require that. New Jersey has something in place, but again, they might accept different types of classes to fulfill that requirement. And so no, I don't necessarily try to push a curriculum. I have actually, as a part-time job, I've worked for financial literacy companies. I have written curriculum for financial literacy companies, and they have tried to push themselves into schools. I don't have my own curriculum, let's say, to push into a school. But what I do is I look at the standards, like the guidelines that we have on a national level, on a state level. And when I'm doing these workshops, I'm making sure that I'm incorporating these things. So I can say that I'm aligned to what the state says. I'm aligned to what the national standards have. And so we're teaching everything that we need to. And that's how I also make sure like all my stuff is covered and we're educating as much as we can.
Got you. Nice. All right, cool. We're gonna wrap at some point offline about that, because definitely I think that I always try to spend a certain percentage of my week trying to get back to some capacity. And I didn't say this at the very beginning. One thing I found dope about what you do is that based off my algorithms, most of the people listening to my content are between 25 to 44, which is cool. Thank God for it. My business is thriving. And I would say 90% of my one-on-ones have been with people that are 24 and above. So I don't really deal a lot with the preteen or the middle schoolers or people like that. I just don't. This is not That's not a demographic I've had the pleasure of speaking with. But after speaking with you and other people at FinCon, I realized, you know what, this is probably something I should look more into, because I'll be honest with you, Christina, when I was 15 or 16, when I was 12 or 13, I didn't see people like you honestly pushing financial literacy. And I think that if I did, and I was always a pretty relatively smart dude, I think if I did, it would have got, I think it's particularly some of the guys I played ball with had seen that it would have changed the entire financial trajectory of their life. They have been learning about index funds or mutual funds or 401k or versus a Roth IRA or IRA versus an annuity. I think if those kind of things were being taught more or less in the hood and being taught as like on the playgrounds and the barbecues and the barbershops and stuff like that, I mean, our entire community will look different. So I love what you're doing, and you kind of give me an idea to a different avenue of financipation that I'm definitely going to push as I get older. So yeah, definitely.
Nice. I'm happy to hear that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely link up and collab about that. All right, let's keep it moving. To my listeners and our teachers and educators and church folks, how would you advise them to talk to the people in their universe, if you will, about finances? Like, how do you get people who quote unquote have some measure of people listening to them to talk to people who have no desire about financial literacy, about how to become financially literate? I know how I do it. How do you do it, Christina?
Yeah, so I would advise to not go at someone and say you need to invest this amount of money at the bare minimum, because a lot of times people are intimidated by a certain amount that they feel like they can't invest, right? So if you're saying you have to invest 25%, if I'm thinking, well, I can maybe do 5%, but you said 25%, I definitely can't make that. I'm just going to back up from this goal. Or even when we talk about emergency funds, right? I always talk about, yes, this could be your long-term goal, but that doesn't mean you have to have it fully funded by next month. Let's make a plan to have it within the next year or two. So really just getting on somebody's level. But more importantly, I would say to start having conversations about the behavior about money, being open, even with your friends. I recently had a friend that asked me, let's go to Puerto Rico for your birthday, literally in like 2 months. I would love to, but I do not have that on my budget right now. I didn't plan that, nor am I going to make that I'm not going to make that last minute call. I'm not going to be what's that word? I'm thinking of a word. But anyways, yeah, I'm not gonna risk some of my own plans because I want to go have a fun time, right? Like, I'm very disciplined with that. But the whole idea is like having a conversation with a friend and letting them know. Because if you just say, no, I can't make that, but they're not understanding why, maybe they're thinking like, oh, you don't want to spend time with me or so forth. And this is something we have to talk to our young people about too, because our young people, they're, especially let's say our 18 or 19-year-olds that are getting into these credit cards and they want to do all of these activities because they don't want to have FOMO, right? And they're thinking about putting things on credit cards instead of having these open conversations and saying, no, I don't have the money for it this month, or let's plan something else that doesn't involve so much money. Like, let's still get together and do something that's relatively cheap or free.
Nice. And I agree with that. I was actually just listening to this podcast with Barack Obama, and he basically was saying that you can have it all, but you might not be able to have it all right now. And a lot of times that's how it works with money. And the thing that's kind of funny is that it doesn't really matter whether you are, whether you're still in the hood playing ball or like you're still in high school, just kind of just chilling with your boys and everything, or whether you're making $300,000 a year hanging out with your medical or your doctor or your engineering buddies. You're always gonna have people say, hey man, we about to go on this trip, you should come with us. You think to yourself, money ain't right now. And you got to kind of develop that, as you said, Christine, you get to kind of develop that idea that, no, this will be fun to do, but I got to put it off. And that kind of level of responsibility is going to something you have to pretty much do everybody for the rest of your life. So I like how you said that, Christina. I love how you said that.
And it just came to me. Impulse buying is the term. So impulse buying affects a lot of Gen Zers, especially. They're used to this impulse because of everything being handed to them. Everything is so quick that they see. And so it affects them the most. They see something and just on an impulse, they'll go say, yes, I can buy it. I can go swipe, So you want to make sure that you are not being affected by that impulse buying.
Yeah, it ain't just the Gen Zers though. You gotta keep it real.
Oh, millennials, everybody, yeah.
All of us. Your friends like, yeah, we gotta go to this trip to Dominican Republic. We gotta go to this trip to Spain or something like that, or we gotta go to the Alps. I mean, it's kind of hard to say no when you know financially you could afford it. You think to yourself, okay, how's this going to affect my investments and stuff? So yeah. Earlier, you talked about money and everything in regards to, okay, you should invest 25% versus 5%. It's funny because I typically do try to tell people, yeah, try to put away 5 to 10% of what you make into A, B, and C. You're saying, Christina, you don't think that's a good idea, or it just kind of depends on how you say it?
No, I think it depends on how you say it, but you also have to know who you're talking to. So if somebody that I'm talking to, I might not want to give that idea or tip to invest a certain amount of money because I want to make sure that they understand why they should be investing this kind of money. Yes, we know that investing is so crucial. We cannot build wealth on saving. We have to be able to invest, right? We know that. But talking to somebody else when they just, again, there's this gap of knowledge, it might not work. So it's about going a different way, making sure that they understand the concept, why they should invest, or maybe just starting off and talking about this behavior, like let's talk about the behavior, the behavior that you're making, the decisions that you're making with your finances first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, cool. I agree with that. Keep it moving. When we were speaking at FinCon, you said you give allowance to your son, and he enjoys investing into his brokerage account. When you told me that, it literally made me smile because it's about 6 or 7 years from now, I'm gonna be doing the same thing with my son. Yeah, probably 5 or 6 years from now with my son. Describe that story to me, to your audience, to my audience. I'm sorry. And when did it click with your son that, yo, investing is cool, and I like when mommy gives me money because I can invest in my own. And from what you told me, you don't even have to tell him to invest. He does it on his own. That's dope.
Yes, that's right. So I would say that I started giving him an allowance when he was 5 years old. So he was in kindergarten and I gave him certain chores. Now, let me say that allowance is very controversial because some people say, oh, why should I give my child money to do things that they should be doing anyways? I agree. And so there are certain things that I literally list out and I say, what are some things that you should be doing anyways, just being part of the household? And what are some extra things that you could be doing to get some money? And so we have that conversation first. And so when I make sure that everything is complete by the end of the week, then I'm giving an allowance. And it grows based off of the grade that they're in, right? So depending on kindergarten, first grade, second grade, so forth. But it wasn't until my son was 7 years old. This was actually during the pandemic. I was listening to a lot of podcasts. And shout out to Earn Your Leisure because that was my podcast at the time. And I was listening to them in the car and not even paying attention. Obviously, my kids are in the back seat. But at one point at the end of the show, at the end of the podcast, my son goes, I want you to open up a brokerage account. And again, he was 7 years old. And I turned around like, what? You want to what? He was like, yeah, I want you to open up a brokerage account for me. And I'm like, and what do you want to invest in? And he's like, Tesla. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, I want to invest in Tesla. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I started, doing a little bit of research, found, could open up a brokerage account under my name, but I'm not putting any money in. It's only his money that he's giving me, right? And so he gave me some money, he invested in Tesla, and then I used that moment as like a teachable moment to also talk about index funds, right? And I wanted to teach him about diversifying. Again, he's 7, but he got it, And so he started investing in Tesla and then started investing in this index fund. And it's funny because he kept checking it. It's an app on my phone. So he kept checking it. And Tesla was going to the moon, right, at that time. And I was like, man, I wish I would have put money in Tesla right now. But it was really growing. And the whole idea, and mind you, he was only putting maybe like $75, $100, something like that, right? But the whole idea is now he's seen it grow. He's 11 now. And so he checks it maybe 3 times a year, honestly, not even that much. And that's a good thing because I want him to see like over a long term how this is growing. And then when he remembers, he's like, oh, it's my birthday. Can you throw an extra $50 towards my investments? And so I'm like, I got you putting it into that account.
Nah, I love that story, Christine. And I wish we could literally take that story, bottle up and ship it all over Black America, all over America. Because that's the kind of stuff that our community is just not telling our kids and everything, and it's the reason why, unfortunately, like you said, we are not building wealth nearly as fast as we should compared to the amount of money that we make. And you, like you said, you as an educated woman understood the importance of, okay, my son is telling me he wants a brokerage account, so you used to open up a custodial brokerage account for him. Custodial means that because your son is under 18, you have control of, but he gets it when he turns 18. I'm assuming. You open that account for him, and your son already at, how old is he again? You said 11.
He's 11 now, yeah.
At 11, he already has a leg up and a jump on so many Americans because he's already understands the power, one, of compound interest. B, he already understands the purpose of delayed gratification. And the fact that your son is investing, I'm an index fund guy. The fact that your son is investing in the index funds and he knows to only check it like maybe 3 to 4 times a year, Christina, you literally have financially changed your generational tree. I mean, seriously, you financially emancipated yourself because trust and believe, your son, when he gets married and starts his own family, he basically is going to be able to take care of them. He's going to be able to teach them the kind of skills that you're teaching him right now. And then on top of that, because you had to open a brokerage account for him, you know that you have the exact same skill set and knowledge. So you know, okay, instead of me buying these new shoes, let me put this in my brokerage account. Instead of me taking this trip to another country 3 times a year, let me only go 1 time a year and invest the rest in my brokerage account. And that, everybody, is how you build generational wealth. And I love it. I love it.
Thank you. I so appreciate that.
Yeah, 5 years old. All right, cool. I think I know what I'm starting to give my son his allowance. Yeah, I've already kind of given him the index fund speech. If you're not familiar about the index funds, they are essentially the entire stock market rolled into essentially one fund. You buy it and you get total diversification. On top of that, the expense ratios are extremely low. And arguably best of all, they also lower your taxes because you're not basically buying and selling, so you're not really getting hit with the capital gains portion of it. So I'm a big index fund guy. I wish more people kind of push them to be real with you. So yeah, definitely.
So funny. I have a funny story to add on to that about index funds, and because we're talking about kids. So I told my son that I wanted to be able to explain to kids, younger kids. I understand he got what index funds is. And I was actually cooking at the moment. And while he's in the kitchen, I was like, how can you help me explain to other kids what index funds are? And he goes, Ma, it's like what you're cooking right now. You have a bag of mixed vegetables, right? He was like, you could just cook broccoli by itself, but you have a whole bag of mixed vegetables. Yep. So we're getting it all packaged together. And I was like, my kid just explained index funds like using an analogy of vegetables. I love it. I was like, this is so good. And I made a reel about it. It was so good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Nah, I love it, Christina. I love it. I love it. All right, cool. Smart little guy. I love it. I love it. All right, keep it moving. My wife and I currently have 2 kids under 3. What are 3 pieces of financial coaching advice you would say to give, I would say, any parent that has young kids around that age? But what are 3 pieces of coaching advice you would give them?
This is one of my favorite questions. And the reason why is because you can start educating your kids as soon as they are talking. So I would say usually around 3, the kids are pretty vocal, and you'll see that soon. Your kid's not going to stop talking, right? And when they're 3, they actually already know the difference between wants and needs. And that's that. When it comes to financial literacy, this is a very basic understanding, is the difference between wants and needs. So I would say for any other parents starting off with kids, even if your kid is 6 or 7 and you're not ready to have that index fund conversation, start off with the basic conversation of what's wants and needs. Meaning I can go down the supermarket and I can now point out to my kids, what is a want, what is a need? Not to say that you can't get any wants based off of this aisle in the supermarket, right? But you need to make sure you have more needs in this cart than we have wants, right? And so again, it's starting that conversation and making sure that they understand, yeah, you might not, if you get everything that you want, you might not have enough for the needs, So making sure they understand that.
Got you. What are 2 other pieces of advice you would say? I would just say for anybody with young kids and they want to start teaching them just financial literacy.
Yeah. So I would also say, 1, to make sure that you are showing whatever advice you want to give them, you're doing it for yourself. So I also see many parents of even adult children asking their adult children, did you budget? But the question comes back to the parent. Did you ever show them how to budget? Because if they're not taught that in school and you haven't shown them how to budget, you can't go telling them, you need to do this. Have you done this? So my kids will literally see an alarm go off on my phone every Monday at 8 p.m. and it says budgeting, right? And they know my alarm is going off on my phone. They might pull up next to me and they can see the process. They can see me on a regular basis budgeting. And no, it's not the same kind of budget they would do, right? Like I have more expenses than they do as a kid, but when they become an adult, they're going to know exactly what budgeting means. When they're older, I'm going to give them the experience to budget, on their own, because right now they're pretty much just saving a lot. So giving them the opportunity to see you do certain things. And then that also ties into my next thing would be to show delayed gratification. So in this world that we live in this society, it's so easy to get things so quick, at your doorsteps by the next day. And so I would say you have to, again, model the kind of delayed gratification that you expect. So I might need a new dining room table, right? But I'm not going to say, hey guys, this weekend, let's go shopping for a dining room table. No, instead, I'm going to say, guys, I need a new dining room table. So in the next 3 to 4 months, I'm going to be setting aside this amount of money every paycheck to make sure that I can get this amount of money. This is my goal within the next 4 months. And then by the end of the 4 months, they're shopping with me to go get my dining room table, right? So again, they are seeing me delay gratification instead of me just going to the store, swiping it, getting it delivered right away.
Got you. And then on top of that too, you also make sure you protect yourself from the horrors of credit card debt and all that kind of foolishness. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Got you. Got you. It's amazing. It's amazing. Keep moving, Christina. Like I said earlier, you are an entrepreneur. You are a teacher as well. In addition to being a math teacher, Christina, you are also an author, which is dope. So tell my audience about your book. I know it just came out. You just posted it in the chat and everything. Tell us about what inspired you to write your book. So if you have it, definitely show a copy of it right now. If you don't got it, it's all good. But if you got it, tell us a little about your book. What made you want to write it, and how can people purchase it?
I should have had it right by me, but I have it upstairs. But yeah, so my book is for children, primarily for like 8 to 12-year-olds. And I wrote a financial literacy book for kids, but it's teaching them about money in a fictional, fun way. So
Right.
it's about 4 friends. They actually love soccer. I'm a soccer mom myself. My boys are obsessed with soccer. And so I wrote the book for my son, for my boys. And I was thinking, like, how can I get them or kids like them who love soccer to also learn about the importance of money and certain financial literacy skills? So yeah, it's about 4 kids. They love soccer. And one day they're playing on the field. They overheard about this academy. And this academy is like far away. They go to this academy. They have to apply for it and everything. They get to this academy, and in the morning, they're doing soccer, drills, skills, all that. And in the afternoon, they go to this school with Miss Penny and they learn about financial literacy. And so I try to tie in a lot of math and money topics with soccer. And there's a lot of like life skills for both of them, in terms of discipline with soccer, discipline with money. So I try to connect those two.
Got you. Nice. All right, so keep bragging. I mean, where can people buy your book? Because the name of this channel, Financipation, I want you to make as much money as possible to financially emancipate yourself from poverty and generational wealth. So where can people buy your book at so that you can basically start stack more paper?
Yes. So in about 2 weeks, I'm going to have an official Amazon launch. Right now, it is on Barnes& Noble. The name of the book is called Goals for Life. So you could purchase it now on Barnes& Noble. But I am going to have an official Amazon launch in about 2 weeks. So third week of November, let's say, it will be on Amazon.
Gotcha. To everybody listening, the link is going to be below. Okay. So by all means, definitely click that link and support this beautiful woman right here. Okay. Definitely. Yep. How'd you get your book in Barnes & Noble? Because I've written about 3 books, and how do I go about doing that? Because I would love to get my books in Barnes & Nobles as well.
Yes. So actually, it's Barnes & Noble online, right? So I'm not there in the store yet. But the process is if you go through Ingram Spark, so just going on that website, Ingram Spark, you have to upload your book there, and then it gives you options of what other distributors you would want them to go through. So Barnes & Noble is one, Walmart is another one. They do have Amazon on that list. and maybe a few other ones as well. So I really just check them all off.
You said Ingram Spark.
Ingram Spark. Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna check that out. Cool, cool. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. Actually, first off, when you first saw that book arrive in the mail, because I know how I got when I can go on Amazon and buy my own book and it came to my house. How'd that feel? Describe it to my listeners, because writing a book is significantly harder than anyone realizes.
Yeah, I had tears. I opened it up and I had tears. It was emotional. It's been a long process for me, especially because of the illustration part. There was a lot of back and forth. I mean, there's back and forth with everything, even the editing to the very last piece. Even now, I'm still, kind of going back and forth. And so, yeah, it's a struggle. And I would say, like, even in the beginning, I didn't know what I wanted to write on. So I actually had multiple documents, like maybe I'm going to write to parents, maybe I'm going to write to kids, maybe I'm going to do a workbook that's math and financial literacy. Like I had so many ideas, but it's not until like I finally like reflected, like, what do I want, and I thought about, if my end goal is to get into schools and do these assemblies and educate them, I got to speak to the kids, right? And so I thought about like doing these lessons throughout this book. And that's what made me think about, all right, I got to do this financial literacy book for the kids. And again, it's a fun fictional story. So hopefully the kids are not thinking like, oh, this is a money book that I got to read. No, hopefully they pick it up because they're like, oh, there's pictures on every page. It's a beautiful book. There's a story behind it,
Yeah, I'm definitely purchase a copy and read it to my son. I think at 2, he's old enough to start saying, okay, well, what is soccer, A, and then B, what's financial literacy? Whatever skills you can pick up on, I'm gonna support you, buy that book and then read to my son. So yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And he actually just finished his first season of soccer about 2 months ago. I'm putting him in basketball in about a month.
Yep. How exciting!
Yeah, definitely. What advice, Christina, would you give to anyone that's thinking of actually becoming an author or writing a book? What's some advice you would give them?
Yeah, so I would say you kind of have to time yourself out and work on your business on a daily basis. Maybe give yourself a break on the weekend, but you gotta have this momentum. And once you have this momentum, you keep on going. You're gonna get to a point where you might feel a little burnt out, especially towards the end. I was getting there. But you need that momentum to get started. And there's also so many cool features nowadays that you can record yourself and then it will transcribe it. So maybe you're thinking about something, like you want to write about it. What I would say is I would start talking into your, into this app and then let it transcribe for you.
Got you. I love it. You said something too earlier. I always tell people I work very busy professional and everything in my corporate career. I have a business on the side and other things. But I always try to say, if you're serious about more or less kind of at some point in your life working 100% for yourself, always try to spend about 1 to 2 hours a day or about 10 hours a week on your business. At the end of the day, corporate America is cool. It has a lot of benefits. You get your 401k match, you get your company vehicles, you get your ESOP programs, you get your employer share option programs, you get your meals when you travel and things like that nature. But always try to build something on the side for yourself. And I always tell people, try to put about 90 minutes to 2 hours a day towards your side business, like you talked about, Christina. That's whether you're writing a book or it's whether you're building a financial consulting business like I've done. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I would say if COVID taught us anything, it taught us that we can't rely on one income, So I'm 100% there with you. Work on yourself, build something for yourself.
Absolutely. So let's get back to the investing thing. Full disclosure, this is a financial channel. So let's say you had a long lost uncle from Argentina or Dominican Republic or America, something like that, and they left you $1 million. How would you invest that? Actually, I'm sorry. What would you do with that money, Christina? What would you do with that money?
Yeah. So you gotta balance it out, right? You gotta have some fun too. But I think for the most part, so I'm also into real estate. I have seen firsthand the power of real estate. I would throw the biggest chunk of money towards investing in real estate. And I know that my properties would appreciate. I know how to get cash flow. So yeah, I would definitely throw a chunk into real estate, let that appreciate. And then, I'd have a little bit of fun, like go travel, have fun with my loved ones. So gotta live
Definitely.
life.
I agree. I agree. All right. What percentage of it would be real estate? Would it be like 700,000, like 70%, 80%? What percentage would be real estate, I would say?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would definitely say at least 70%. Yeah.
Got you. Got you. Let's stay on the topic of real estate. I found it actually pretty fascinating. When me and you were rapping at FinCon, I found it was pretty dope when you talked about essentially you're in the real estate. And as I was asking more and more questions, I was like, wait, no, this girl is actually legit into real estate. Like a lot of people, they say that because they want to sound cool, they want to sound financially literate, but you actually legit are doing the dang thing. So you do long distance real estate. So describe to my audience how you got into long distance real estate and B, how you make it profitable.
Yes. So I will say that I started off as a landlord and the property was 5 minutes away. But to be honest, if I have a problem with a house that's 5 minutes away or 5 hours away on the plane, I'm still picking up the call. I'm still picking up the phone to call somebody, right? I'm not going to go to that property and fix a toilet myself. Not going to happen, right? So I feel like when you put your systems in place, it really doesn't matter where. But I will say, I had that as a long-term rental. And then I got into short-term rentals. Specifically, I bought in the Poconos. So for anyone who doesn't know that area, it's about 2 hours away from me in Jersey, and it's in Pennsylvania. And in the Poconos, we have skiing, we have snowboarding, we have lakes, we have zip lining, ATVs, mountains. It's just a ton of different things, like outdoor activities to do. And
Yep.
so people love, the beauty of the Poconos. So I first bought a property in the Poconos, and it was actually with my ex. And we ended up doing really well with it. But because it was in an HOA, the HOA decided that they wanted to remove the short-term rental regulation that we originally had a regulation for it, but they wanted to ban it. And so the moment that they started talking about it and they said they were going to do a vote and see what the residents thought about it and so forth, we're like, we're out. We're not playing with that because we didn't really trust how the voting was going to go.
Right.
And we were of the first to get out. And to this day, this was like 3 years ago. To this day, there's still people who are struggling to sell their property in that area. And there was a lot of lawsuits involved and so forth. But anyways, the process has taught us that once you have your systems in place, yes, that was 2 hours away, you can buy anywhere. And so we learned the process of how to be short-term rental hosts. And then we started investing further because honestly, us in Jersey, our dollar goes a lot further in other areas of the country.
Oh,
Specifically, we started investing in the Midwest. So we have one property in Wisconsin, and then we have the rest of the properties in Missouri.
Got you. Did you find a mentor, Christina? Did you just read books? Did you join real estate investment groups? How did you get to the point where you educate yourself so much to the point where you could actually do real estate?
Yeah, so I listened to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books, and Facebook has been it for me. There are so many Facebook groups that I joined with real estate, and I always advise other people to do the same. Like people might be wondering, well, how do I get into one area in the Midwest? And I say, find that area on a Facebook group because you will get so much insight just through hearing what other people are saying, just like locals in the area.
Got you. How many properties did you say you currently manage, I would say?
Yes. So right now we have 3 properties, and then we bought a mini resort that has 6 houses on them. But out of those 6, 4 of them are up and running. So currently I'm property managing 7, and I'm working on a rehabbing for the other 2.
Got you. In between, between that being a teacher and being an author, and a mother, how do you balance your time? Because is it very time consuming being a property manager of 7 properties? How do you manage your time?
Yeah. So I would say at this point, I've become very good at it. when it comes to managing the properties because I rely on a lot of software. There's a lot of platforms out there that will, that helps you with time management and really saves you so much time. So for example, I have this one platform that it sends out the automatic messages. So if somebody books, like let's say right now we're on a call, but somebody just booked my property, I don't have to worry about answering that person really quickly because I have an automatic message that's saying, thank you for booking with us. 3 days before you come, I'm going to send you out a digital guidebook. I'm going to give you information and so forth. And so we have these platforms. And then at the same time, that same software sends out a message to my cleaning team. It also links with the door lock, so there's a lot of different features that I use. Of course, people are always going to ask questions and they still need that human touch behind them. And I always respond pretty quickly to them. But I know for the most of the time, like I could be sleeping overnight and somebody books, but there's always going to be that automatic message that says, thank you for booking with us. Here's the information, so forth.
So spill the beans. What's the name of that software?
Yeah, it's called Hospitable. I love it.
Hospitable.
And I would say if you just have one or two properties, it might not be necessary because Airbnb itself does have an automatic feature to send out messages. But once you have multiple ones, it becomes a lot, it's a lot easier to manage when you do have a software program.
Got you. I love it. There's a young lady I met up in Orlando, Antoinette, and she's a millionaire today because of real estate. And it's interesting because when me and her used to hang out and everything, like just salsa dance and like just ride bikes and stuff like that, and like kind of hang out like with just other Black professionals in Orlando. She's always saying, Chris, I want to get into real estate. Chris, I want to get into real estate. And it was crazy because like 5 years later, I looked up and she said, I'm a deca millionaire. And I was like, oh, shoot, congrats. So it's amazing to me how much money you can make in real estate if you do it the right way. And so let me ask you this question, the right way. I think the answer is no. So are you a Dave Ramsey type where you put 100% down on a house and wait 25 or 30 up, or are you more of a 3% down gal and then you find the tenants and kind of go from there, buy, rent, rehab, refinance, repeat? Like, what's your real estate strategy, I would say?
Yeah. So no shame to Dave Ramsey, but I am not for that waiting until you are debt free to start getting into investments, right? And I believe that you can grow wealth at the same time. And I'm also a big believer on having the highest ROI as possible. And to do that, it's always by putting the least amount down for an investment. So what I take advantage of, because I only get short-term rentals, is I take advantage of something called the second home loan. So you can get a second home loan in Poconos, in Philly, and the Jersey Shore, multiple areas you can get a second home, and you only need to put down 10%. So again, when I'm doing my calculations and I'm trying to figure out how much am I going to generate, what's my revenue going to be, what's my payback period going to be, I'm not putting down the most as possible. I'm trying to put down the least amount as possible because I want my ROI to be the highest amount.
Got you. I love it. So walk me through that. You put 10% down, and then once you put 10% down, do you refinance it and rehab it, or you just put 10% down and you start trying to find your tenants to put into it?
So because I use a short-term rental loan, they're all like Airbnb, VRBO type of properties, right? So you do a second home loan because essentially you're telling the lender that that is your second home, right? So as a second home, you also make the promise that you will be there for at least 2 weeks out of the year. So that's kind of like your compromise for getting the second home loan. That is really your second home. You will be there for 2 weeks. The moment that you say this is my investment property, a lender is going to say you need to put down 15, 20, or 25%, depending on the lender. But if I say, no, it's my second home, they're going to say, okay, you can put 10% down. And you also get a better interest rate than going to say it's an investment property. So again, by having those low numbers, I get in with 10%. And then depending on the rehab and so forth, and all the numbers involved, then I fix up whatever was needed, got to do permits, all this stuff for a short-term rental. And then I can start advertising on Airbnb and so forth.
Got you. Nah, I'm definitely learning some things in this, Christina. Thank you. It's to all my listeners that are listening and everything, we went through the entrepreneur, we went through the corporate America track record as far as, okay, making your money as a teacher. We went through the entrepreneur aspect about being an author, an accomplished author. Now we're talking about the legit meat and potatoes about real estate, which I think is something that all people at some point should get in. And we also talked a little bit about investing as well. So I think we're hitting pretty much every point, every point. And historically speaking, there are three ways people build money. They build money, they build generational wealth rather. They build it through buying property land / real estate. They do it through starting a business, and or they also and lastly, they build it through a combination of having a steady income stream and investing into the stock market. And Christina, you are literally, from what it sounds like, doing all three of those. So definitely keep up the good work. Keep up the good work.
All right, thank you.
Got you. Let's go to a slightly different, somewhat darker thing. Sexism in the teaching profession, sexism as an entrepreneur, sexism as in the real estate world. Have you ever experienced it? And if so, how do you get around it?
Yeah, I find that I fortunately have not experienced it. I want to say sometimes people will look at me like, oh, she's young or, minority female. But the moment that I start talking and I start explaining the things that I do, I get respect right away. And I actually experienced this the first time I was a professor at 23 years old, and I'm teaching at the college level. And mind you, I probably looked like I was 15 at the time. And so I was thinking and the college that I was teaching at was like more adults, not like 18-year-olds, like 40-year-olds, They were adults that came back to school. So I was like, oh God. I was like, this is going to be a challenge. But no, I had the confidence because I knew what I was talking about. I knew math and that was my thing. So the moment that I might have gotten some looks, but the moment that I start speaking and I can educate and I could say it in a way that they understand, then they appreciated it. So I think if you can articulate in a way to make sure that people understand things and don't go over their head, at least that's been the benefit for me. And fortunately, I haven't had that experience.
Yeah, I'll give a quick little brief story about me in corporate. I am literally the only one that looks like me in my 9 to 5. I've never met a person in my career who looks like me, who does what I do for a living. I build billion-dollar facilities for the federal government, and you can literally go to certain parts here in Miami and say, the Black engineer, and they'll know who you're talking about. That's kind of how few of us there are there, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is, right? So anyway, when I walk into rooms, the first thing I always get is you're the people are like kind of trying to figure out who I am. But like you said, the second I open my mouth and I'm start explaining to them different systems, what I'm looking for, how much money I can make for them, what the ROI is going to be if they go for this electrical system versus that fire alarm system versus this type of complicated mechanical system versus this type of plumbing system or whatever. And I kind of start going down the line about why you want to do A, B, and C versus go to D, E, and F. They immediately say, okay, I don't know who this guy is, but he knows his stuff. Or I immediately start just quoting the code off the top of my head or saying why you should go with this versus that and what your pros and cons are going to be. And you will literally have people who, let's just say, may or may not particularly like me, eating out of the palm of my hand in less than 5 minutes because I know what I'm talking about. And I would say to anybody that's listening, that's kind of a microcosm to what you experienced, Christina. That's kind of a microcosm to how the world actually operates. Yeah, you are always going to meet people who don't like you, but when it boils down to it, if you are really, really, really good and knowledgeable about what you do and you're very prepared, you'll have people who don't even like you saying, that's who I want to work with and that's who I want to work for. So, yep.
Oh, true. Yeah, they'll give you the respect.
Yeah, we'll give you that respect. All right, let's keep moving. Getting a little short on time. I want to be respectful of that. So, readers or leaders, Christina, what are 3 books you would advise my listeners to read?
Yes. So, number 1 would be, let's say my book, Goals for Life. Let's go.
They get shy and don't want to ask that, don't want to say their own book. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I brought you on the show to brag about yourself.
Yes. So it's called Goals for Life by Crystina Cardozo. So go get that book. If you have kids or not, it's still a great book. The first book that I read when I kind of got back into reading was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I know there's some controversial, news about him, but I like the whole storyline between business and real estate. So that was, a few years ago, a top book of mine, just kind of like getting me into the idea of risking things, because for so long I was really good with budgeting and saving, but until I really understood the power of investing, I felt like I wasn't financially literate. I wasn't financially whole until I learned that power. And I feel like with his book, I really started thinking more about, being more risky with investments and so forth. The other book that is my favorite book is called Psychology of Money.
It's a
Have
good
you
one.
read it?
That's a very, absolutely, it's a phenomenal book.
It's my favorite book. And I feel like so many of us, we have this idea that whatever we know, our upbringing is the right way of thinking, right? And that's a problem because it all depends on the history and the upbringing of other people. So it wasn't until like I remember reading this part in Psychology of Money and it said, like, I'm a real estate investor, right? But if your parents grew up in an era where they lost it all because of real estate, naturally you were affected by that and you're not going to think that real estate is all that, you know? So it's understanding other people's perspectives. And it wasn't until I read that book that I was like, oh, so many things just clicked. Again, it's that psychology part. So I love that book.
Dope, dope, dope. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I would advise all three of those books. Every book that you said, I haven't read your children's book yet. I'm about to buy that, but I would say every book that you read, phenomenal. If I were to answer this question, I would say first book I would tell you to read, obviously, is my book, Scholarships: The Golden Road to Free Money, written by Christopher Phelps. More or less in that book, everybody, I walk you through how I got $300,000 to go to undergrad for free. So anybody wants to go to college and basically not have to pay Salome a single penny, just follow the example I set in that book, and you're good to go. Another book I would advise everybody read is Jack Bogle's A Little Book of Common Sense Investing, just because he kind of breaks down a concept that I think is the golden road essentially to building wealth if you want to do it through the stock market. And the last book I would advise everybody to read is not a financial book at all. It's called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Just because that brother has literally been through hell. And as a result of that, it's allowed him to kind of develop a type of strength that mentally I think you gotta have to have if you want to be serious about building wealth. From him being a U.S. Navy SEAL to seeing his friends get killed in front of him, grew up in a very abusive home. If you want to get mentally tougher, and you're gonna have to get mentally tough if you want to financially emancipate yourself from poverty, that's a phenomenal book to read. So those are the three books I would tell you to read. And let's keep moving, Christine. Let's keep it moving. Last question. You are a daughter, you are a mother, you are a math teacher, you are an author, you are an entrepreneur, you are a real estate investor, and you are a great example to our community. So when God calls you home, what do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah. So making an impact is the biggest thing for me. And I think naturally as an educator, like why I went to school for teaching, I'm already biased in that realm, right? Like I love this rewarding feeling of educating other people and seeing their growth. Like that's always been it for me. But I think about not being in the classroom, right? And I want to make sure that my impact lives on for generations. So to me, like I mentioned in the beginning, is closing that wealth gap, educating children. And so that's going to trickle down, right? Like you mentioned, you gave kudos to me and my kid for, how it's going to affect him later on when he becomes an adult, a husband, and so forth, right? And so doing that times so many other kids is really just going to leave like this lasting impact way past, I'm here. So really that's my goal, is to impact the most amount of children as possible while I'm here.
Absolutely. I know I said that was the last question. I do actually want more. My father was a teacher for 22 years after he got the U.S. military for 22 years as well. What are the three just stories you can tell me about being a teacher? Actually, what's the coolest story you can tell me about being a teacher that when you grow old and like you say, you know what, that's why I became a teacher? What's the story you can tell me about that?
Oh. There's so many things that come to mind. Really, I think the best part about being a teacher is having kids come back to you later on, So let's say I taught a student in 9th grade, but later on she's emailing me like 5-6 years later, like, just thinking about you, you were my favorite teacher. And the thing is, like, I might not even remember certain specific lessons, right? But right. Whoever that student was, they remembered how I made them feel or, you know, how I was supportive of them, or how I took the time, you know, to make sure that they really grasped or understood the lessons, you know? So the best, most rewarding thing is not even like the day to day. It's, you know, them coming back years later and knowing that you made that impact for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, my father, if he walks around this small city that him and my mother retired in, he literally always has kids walking to me, Mr. Phelps, I stopped selling drugs because of you. Mr. Phelps, I joined the Marines because of you.
Oh,
Mr. Phelps, everybody in my family been in prison. I'm the only one that went to college because of you. Mr. Phelps, it's one of those kind of things that my mom, every time she sees, she says it does something inside of her because my dad changed the trajectory of his life. And a lot of these kids, I mean, my dad, they'll say their name. And my dad, he remembers something he does not remember, but it changed the entire trajectory of that kid's life. So I love it. The last thing I want to say is this as well. Earlier in this podcast, everybody, I said that Black Americans, we kind of have an annual spending power of $2 trillion. So let's say, just for craps and giggles, we invested a certain percentage. Let's say every year we invested 400 billion of that 2 trillion that we made. And let's say we did that for 25 years. So if we did that, we would have over $47 trillion in less than 25 years. If you invest that amount at 10% into a brokerage account, an index fund, or the S&P 500. So I say that people to say this, there is no reason why we cannot, in one generation, everybody, change the wealth gap. At the end of the day, we all understand that there is definitely a legacy of slavery, there's a legacy of Jim Crow, there's a legacy of redlining districts, there's a legacy of the war on drugs, which again, mass incarceration. We get all that. But at the end of the day, people, buy this young woman's book, subscribe to my channel, and we're going to literally systematically teach you the things that I know our grandparents were never taught, and to some extent our parents were not taught. And we're going to teach you how to build generational wealth in a country and in a system that to some extent was not always set up for us. And whenever I hear people say that Black people are poor, we're not poor. We just never taught how to properly invest. And if you subscribe to what Christina is talking about as far as investing your money and as far as getting into long-term real estate rentals and things like that, you do it the right way. And you subscribe to what I'm saying in regards to building generational wealth, people, you are going to literally change your family tree by investing in investments. So that, everybody, it's your boy Chris. Thank you for watching the podcast. Christina, this was dope. When I first met you at FinCon, I was like, I gotta get her on the podcast because I knew this was going to be a good one. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming on.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. This was fun.
Yeah, where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Instagram. So you can find me at, my handle is She Runs the Numbers. Yeah, you know why now, because I'm a math educator, real estate investor, all of that. But yeah, you can definitely hit me up on Instagram and I will definitely reply to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. In regards to that, for me, everybody, once again, this is Christopher Phelps. This channel is all about making money. It's all about saving money. It's all about building generational wealth. And it's all about financially emancipating yourself from generational poverty. You can book a one-on-one session with me at any point. The link is below. I'm not giving financial advice on this channel. Definitely do your own research before you invest anything. And you can check me out on my website, www.therealfinancipation.com. My Instagram is _Financipation. My TikTok is Financipation. My Facebook page is Financipation. And check out my digital blog as well. With that, everybody, please like, please comment, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and definitely buy her book. I'm going to be buying a copy of it literally as soon as I got this podcast. Thanks, Christine, once again for coming on. Okay, thank you. I'm glad we met at FinCon. Definitely.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
Cool. All right, take it easy. Peace.